Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. I know it's not the best weather, but we are so excited to welcome you here, and we have an amazing group of iconic panelists and speakers today. So before we kick it off, I just want to announce I have a phone that somebody left by the coffee bar. If you're looking for it, I'll be in the back. And I'm going to, oh, it's Tracy's. Okay, well, I'll just put it on her chair. Oh, here we go. Was there a piece of paper with it? No. Okay, sorry about that. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Chris Genteel, who's head of business and community inclusion at Google, and has really enabled all of this to happen today. So I'll give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. Our intention is that nobody walks away without their phone. I know, well, you lose your phone, and right, it's your lifeline. So we will take care of you today. And thanks for being here at Google. And hope that we can take care of you throughout this day. Welcome to the Black Fashion Founders Forum, hosted by the Council of Fashion Designers of America and Accelerate with Google. We are so honored to play a part in hosting this event, having you here in our house today. My name is Chris Genteel, head of community and business inclusion. And what that means is really my team and I focus on how we can integrate inclusion into the vast range of Google's products and services, with a real focus on how we bridge the digital divide. It's really important and timely for us to be having this conversation about how we integrate inclusion into your industry. Here we are at Fashion Week, and technology has really crashed into so many different industries, right? And fashion, of course, is one of them. And whether it's what we wear or what we see in the media and the depiction of this industry, we think we can help play a role, and we know you are all playing a leading role in integrating inclusion across the industry. And so we're just proud to be part of this event. It's also really personal for me. I grew up across town with a mom who's in the fashion industry, and my mom, Eve Genteel, graduated from FIT, as like a couple of our speakers today, and maybe some of you in the audience, graduated from FIT back in 1961, and set out to be an entrepreneur in the industry. And she often worked freelance and often worked inside the studios. But I grew up just uptown on Fashion Avenue, hiding in some of the huge looms of fabric, and making friends with everybody who played a vast variety of roles in this industry, whether it was the folks on the front line getting stuff to customers, or folks way back in the process like my mom, who were designing what went into clothing. She loved the industry, and there were also lots of hardships, and she didn't have a lot of the technology advantages that we all have today. She sure made sure that I did, though, right, through providing for me and my education. And it was her aspiration, as demonstrated by buying me a computer when I was very young, and making sure that I had access to things like coding classes when I was very, very young, right before it was hot, right, to do CS, right? And so she knew what it could mean. And when things like CAD came into her industry back in the late 80s, early 90s, and began to upend things, she didn't always know how to stay apace with the change of technology. But she always strived. And so that's why we're here, right? Because some of you in the audience have been iconic members of this industry, making that striving happening, right? And bringing different communities into this industry. And others of you are here because you want to maybe take that first step and learn through our partners at the CFDA, and learn through all of our panelists here and through the Googlers here about what you might do to take that next step. So again, very personal for me, and thanks for joining us on this journey. So I want to, before I introduce our first speaker, I want to just thank the Google team who's put this together. Yeah, thank you. Give it up. So Jamie Rosenstein, who's really been the chief of this event and has done an amazing job getting you all here. Rena Jana, Annie Jean Baptiste, who you'll hear from later today, Lucy Pinto on my team, and our Google volunteers who are just helping turn the gears on this, Carmen, Adeline, and others. Thank you so much for being part of this event. So I want to turn it over to a distinguished guest, a prominent figure in this industry, Tracy Reese, who I've just had the opportunity to meet for the first time. And we're really honored to have you here. She's from Detroit, Michigan, which is my new adoptive hometown, where I've lived for the last decade. And so I need to talk to her about Detroit. But she attended Parsons here in New York, launched her own vaunted fashion label that you all know about. It's been in Vogue, Elle, Glamour, InStyle, O, Oprah Magazine, Essence, WWD. You know, her fans include Michelle Obama, Sarah Jessica Parker, Taylor Swift, you know, my besties too. And she's at the board of directors here at the CFDA, and is part of why we're all here today. So without further ado, I'd like to pass this to her, and thank you all for coming to Google. Tracy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You guys don't mind if I sit, do you? I don't usually wear heels, but I brought them for you today. I'm honored to be here, and I think that this is going to be an exciting forum, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. I want to thank Chris for that lovely introduction. As you know, I've been designing in this industry for quite some time. I'm 30-something years in. And it's been an incredible journey for me. And I think that as a woman of color, you know, of course, my journey has been a little bit different than perhaps someone else's has. But it's been mine. And I think it's important for us to continue to have these conversations about diversity in our industry and, you know, where we've come from and where we hope to go. I'm following in the footsteps of amazing designers like Stephen Burrows and Jeffrey Banks and Willie Smith. There's so many designers who have come and gone, people that, you know, a lot of us remember, like Gordon Henderson and so many others. And I think as a woman, you know, it's harder to pull names up, but there are so many wonderful designers now, you know, from Aurora James to Carly Cushnie and so many others. So it's exciting to be able to know that there are more women of color coming to prominence in our industry. As Chris said, I'm from Detroit, something I'm extremely proud of. And, you know, my city is close to my heart and is a part of my present and my future, and hopefully also the future of the fashion industry. And I went to public schools all the way through, and I came to New York and went to Parsons. And I was lucky enough to have a scholarship at Parsons, and that was really, you know, the start of my career because it was an incredible foundation. The connections there are, you know, so broad, and I made, you know, friends that I'll have for the rest of my life. And I got an incredible education, and I'll be forever thankful for that. And, you know, I'm still close to Parsons, but all of the schools that provide an excellent fashion education, design, business, whatever, they're all super important. And I think, you know, it's important that we support the schools that have really strong programs and that we reach out to those schools for, you know, the designers of the future, the editors of the future, the illustrators. You know, hopefully that's not a profession of the past, because the passion that goes into illustration cannot be duplicated by technology. Sorry, that's just the hand and the heart coming together. So starting a business in this industry as a woman and as a woman of color wasn't really easy, but I'm not a person who focuses on the the negatives. My cup runneth over. I've had incredible opportunities throughout my life and career, and I was lucky enough to have parents that supported me in my dream, and my dad really financed my business not once, but twice, because I went out really fast in the 80s and came back again in the 90s, and he was there for me to give me the seed money to get started. But I had to do a lot of footwork on my own. I had to, apply for loans and grants and call in every favor that I could think of and push myself out of my comfort zone. And it's always interesting to find myself in this kind of situation where I'm speaking to a room full of people, because I was the quiet sister growing up. Both my sisters are very lively and bubbly, and I was always hiding behind my mother's skirts. So, this is part of my job, being able to speak, express myself, and it's always been easier to express myself through art than it is through putting myself out there. But I'm encouraged, seeing times change and seeing us have more opportunities to express ourselves and who we are through social media, through, technology. I think it's helping to broaden the concepts of beauty, of what fashion means, what personal expression is, and all of that is enhancing the work that I do and that all of us in the industry do. So I think I'm winding down on time. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to hear what you all have to say, and I want to introduce Rikki, who is going to be moderating the next panel. So I've got a little description here. Rikki Byrd is a scholar, writer, and educator whose work specializes in fashion and race. She received her Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Missouri and her Master of Arts from Parsons School of Design. Her research has appeared at Art Basel, Miami, and in several academic journals, and her writing has appeared in Racked, Mike, among others. She has lectured and participated in panel discussions at Parsons School of Design, Junior High, ! In Los Angeles, Weeksville Heritage Center in Brooklyn, among others, and cultural institutions. Rikki is currently a faculty member at Washington University in St. Louis. So without further ado, I welcome Rikki to the stage, and we'll get started. Rikki's also wearing some really cool red boots.
Hello, everyone. My panelists can come up too. I don't think I'm supposed to have an introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are staying warm and dry as you can. I am honored to be sharing the stage with Dario Calmese, Chioma Nnadi, Bethann Hardison, and Jahleel Weaver, people who I look up to and who have inspired me in their respective careers. It is New York Fashion Week. It is Black History Month, two of the things that I look forward to every year. And what's interesting as well is during Black History Month, we're all often gathered together for conversations like this. That's very necessary, but we all know that the issues affecting Black folks across the diaspora goes beyond 28 days. So we're going to try to dig into it today and have a real conversation with the folks here who are very passionate about this topic and about this work. So I want to start the conversation today with the person sitting next to me, Dario Calmese, who's a friend of mine. We're both from St. Louis, Missouri, but met here in New York a few years ago. And a couple of years ago, Dario and I were in conversation, and Dario, you said something interesting to me. You said, everything is Black Lives Matter. You said at Black Lives Matter, the movement had shifted popular culture in such a way where it was difficult to detach, film or, the wealth of Black folks appearing on the cover of magazine covers or in TV, et cetera. So can you talk to me a little bit about what you mean, one, by everything is Black Lives Matter, but also how that becomes a little bit problematized within the fashion industry and in moments where kind of movements get reduced to moments?
Okay, hey, what's up, guys? So when we were in conversation, I was saying that, Black Lives Matter was really has really moved beyond telling police officers not to kill Black people. What I think the movement did was become an addendum to the civil rights movement, where we now have a generation of multicultural Americans who perhaps don't harbor the same kinds of attitudes towards Blackness and Black individuals that perhaps we had in the 60s, but maybe woke up to the idea that maybe our boardroom isn't as diverse as we thought, or, oh my God, we don't have any Black models on this cover. So not necessarily that they themselves are racist and or prejudiced, but just an actual lack of awareness. And I think that Black Lives Matter was a big wake-up call to everyone across the board about inclusion, numbers, things like that. And then when you speak about how it can be problematic, I actually don't fully agree that that it's problematic, because I think that we've moved to a place where, yes, there are certain moments, say more Black models in campaigns, but I think also a part of the awareness brought about by Black Lives Matter was people moving from representation to leadership. So I think we have more people of color in positions that can green light things. I think about like Elaine Welteroth at Teen Vogue, who can say, we're going to put this model on the cover. And so I think that was always the big issue, is that, when you have a certain group of people who are choosing who gets to be somewhere, then it can be reduced to a moment. But when people of color are actually at the table and have positions to make decisions, it changes it. It moves from a moment, it moves it from a moment to something that actually just becomes normalized. And I think without that, we wouldn't have had, say, a Kerry Washington in Scandal, right? Because before that happened, they thought a Black woman could never be a primetime lead, but it took another Black woman in a place to greenlight that, to show that this is a possibility, and it just kind of normalizes it. So I don't think that it's actually just a moment. I think that we've actually moved into an entire new era.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of people in positions who can greenlight, these stories or these covers or the runways, et cetera, Chioma is the fashion news director at Vogue.com. And one question I have for you is there are amazing stories that you've covered. You highlighted Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. You did a story that at least went viral on my timeline of women in the military who were taking advantage of the ban that had been lifted. Black women weren't allowed to wear their hair in natural styles. And you highlighted all of these women who were courageous enough to do so. You've also kind of spoken about your own experiences on Vogue.com of your racial identity and nationality, and how that's affected, you within the industry and also within kind of the political climate. So one, how do you prioritize those stories on the website?
Well, I think fashion news and news in general is all about point of view, and I think that's totally shaped by your experiences, who you are, so I think I see the world the way I see it. I can't unsee it as a woman of color. That's just my perspective. That's part of who I am, and that's part of what I bring to a place like Vogue.com. We happen to have a really diverse team, so there are discussions happening around all of these issues. Actually, the women in the military story was really came together through a colleague of mine. She drew attention to it. There was an article in the New York Times, and I hadn't even sort of considered what sort of a natural hair journey might be like in the military, where there are so many restrictions. And I spent 9 hours speaking to 16 different women, and I had no idea as a fashion girl going into it, thinking, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm just no one who knows anything about the military. And it was so fascinating to also sort of connect with people, and I think doing those stories is really help. I mean, a lot of people just connecting on an emotional level on these experiences. And on a platform like Vogue.com, often people are surprised, you know. But, you know, hopefully this will bring positive change. And in the fashion industry, I think it is, you know, really important that these things are covered on mass, you know, platforms like Vogue.com.
Do you think social media has shifted at all, kind of the type of coverage that your publication or even across fashion media is able to publish? Because you, on the one end, you kind of have social media functioning in this way where everyday people can engage with the fashion industry in a way that they haven't been able to historically.
Right.
And then on the other hand, you have where everyday people can call out the fashion industry and fashion media for things. It doesn't have to be swept under the rug anymore, but when that problematic editorial comes out, or when that, you know, someone notices that there aren't enough women of color on the pages of this magazine or on the cover of this magazine, this conversation starts on social media. So how has that experience been, but also how has social media kind of widened the landscape for fashion media from your perspective?
Well, it's interesting that you should talk about this, because actually on Monday night I was at a Harlem Front Row event, and Dapper Dan was speaking that Brandice put together. And it was interesting to hear his story, because he talked about how Black Twitter went crazy because, you know, and called out Gucci. And what was really great about that, how that brought about positive change, because it ended up starting a conversation with Gucci, a real partnership for Dapper Dan, and he ended up getting the sort of shine that he deserved, and now he's working with that brand in an ongoing way, in a way that just wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for social media. You know, so I think that it's really important, because it also brings these conversations out to a wider audience, because I think a lot of these things we already know. Because sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, of course I knew that. Like, you know, we've been talking about this, but often, you know, to your point about awareness, there isn't that same awareness. Often, you know, I find people are like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that, or haven't been thinking about that. And these are conversations that have been ongoing in the Black community for decades. So I think what social media is doing is sort of helping to sort of broaden the audience and helping to sort of spotlight where there are problems, and hopefully it will help change. Because I don't think that negative energy is necessarily great. You know, when it comes on Twitter, there's a lot of like negative energy, which sometimes sort of upsets me. But I love it when a really good provocative dialogue starts and it leads to positive change, because that's what we all want, right? That's the end goal. And that's why I think what's great about social media, you know, it can start the discussions that needed to have happened years ago.
And talking about kind of social change in tandem with fashion media, moving down the line, I promise I didn't tell them all to sit this way. It's just the conversation voted this way.
Worked out for you.
Yeah, it worked out. But moving to Bethann, again, someone who I look up to and have written about in my research, when you released your letters in 2013 with the Diversity Coalition, calling out the industry for the lack of representation, for its racism, a lot of the fashion media picked it up. It did have kind of its viral take on social media. And since releasing the letters, what type of change has come about? Or can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's been presented that, like you had said to me prior, that the letters went viral. I never knew it went viral. I'm happy to know if it went viral. I'm so excited to know it went viral. I went viral. I never had a clue. What was important to me is media. The media internationally. There's a hard copy of things you can read. That's because that's my generation. You know, I'm someone who, I'm not a big social media yay team fan because of the fact that it's sort of, for me, has weakened the industry of fashion because of what now it's become part of popular culture, where we were in a elitist little island. It was kind of cool. All right, it's not like that anymore. So that said, a lot had changed from those letters going out. Absolutely. And it wasn't that I called the industry a racist or they were racist. I was indicating and educating to the fact that no matter what the intention is, if you continually, season after season, use 35 girls, 35 boys that are Caucasian and never include but maybe one or two for 3 seasons, then whether it's your intent or not, the result is racism. So I would never say that, because I think my industry is more ignorant than racist. And so because of that, that's why it was easier for me. And since I grew up in the garment district, and I believe in the people that have grown up in it, and the people who are in it now, they need to know how we came from, what we came from. So that's very easy to spank the hand of a fashion person because their intent is based on ignorance to me.
And so when we were, when you emailed me back, you said, you know, when you were a model, the fashion industry welcomed Black models. And so what was that experience like, going from that time period when you all were welcomed and then come into 2013 and have to go the extra mile of actually releasing these letters? What was the disconnect? What happened?
Well, we've had a long journey. I mean, it's been great to come out of the movement of Black is Beautiful, which is the end of the 60s, and going into the 70s when New York City became just delightful in so many ways, and so many creative designers came along that were white, Black, they were different, and they just embraced any girl who had something. Didn't come down to her color. So if we went through that in the 70s, we went through that up to a point of the 80s, and then I started my model agency, which was a white model agency with Blacks and Latins and Asian kids in it. Then you could sort of see that things were moving along nicely. What happened is, by my being there, I guess, as the only agent owner that was of color, it was very easy for me to oftentimes speak to the people who were my clients to say, you're having a lot of white girls, so come on. You got one Black girl you want me to find. I mean, come on, don't you see what that's like? You could talk like that. And with Brides magazine, you could say, well, Black girls get married too, I mean, it was very easy. Very easy, because it's me, and so they would just basically say, oh, Bethann, oh, you're so funny. I didn't think of it like that. So it became something that you could actually see, just how you could do this. So by the time, like you're saying, we get to 2013, there was a break. The Black Girls Coalition started in the mid-'80s, like 85. I started 84, so 88. By the time we had a glorious time then, nothing was like what it was in the 80s. 80s was like, girls were on covers of magazines. They were in the magazines. Before it was, a division between the runway model and the print model. Now it's like the girl could really work and do catalog and advertising and editorial, and she was doing well. And God bless, and I'll always say, God bless Regis Penez, who came from France and opened up American Elle here. He was the guy who led the charge naturally, organically. He was not trying. He just loved any woman of glamour and beauty. And he put lots of girls in the cover, which made Condé Nast and Hearst to have to jump up. So when this had happened and went on for a period up until 1996, when I decided to step away from Bethann management, the model management, then what wound up happening for about 10 years, the Black girls slowly start disappearing. And I just disappeared because I just wanted out. I never thought things would change. And then it just began the industry changed, the world changed. The fashion model was being discovered in Eastern Europe. We now have stylists and casting directors. It was never, those things didn't exist in our industry before. So now it became a problem. And the problem became that people from outside was deciding for the designer who they should have. No longer the fashion model was a muse, and so that changed everything. So that being said, by the time we got to 2013, there was a journey. The reason why I could be so gangster with it is because of the fact that we had already been there. If I had never, ever been, I would tell girls, let's go straight to Silicon Valley. Screw this. But because we had it before, it was easy to make sure no one took it away from us. So it wasn't so like, oh my God, it's like, oh, here we go. It's like that. So that's the reason why it was something that was of importance. But at the same time, it was like something you just had to do. It was in front of you.
And I think the constant theme here is change and necessary change in all the avenues that you all work in. And so moving to Jahleel, You're the junior creative director for Fenty Core. And so you've worked on the Fenty and Puma collections, and you're also Rihanna's stylist, making us all jealous, wishing we could be as fly as she is. But I want to talk a little bit about Fenty Beauty because I love it, but also because I think that it can be argued that it's kind of revolutionizing beauty and fashion in a certain way that, from my research, I mean, I'm not know all of the things, but from my research, since Fashion Fair, really, when Fashion Fair catered to Black women who were models and they couldn't go backstage and find makeup that matched their skin tones. And here now we have Fenty Beauty, where we see this wide range of shades for people to shop with, and this experience that's being curated and being led by a Black woman. So what is it like being a part of a company that very visually prioritizes Black folks?
I mean, I feel like I'm one of the very few people that can say I work for a Black woman. I'm very blessed in that regard. You know, I can say that. So every day I go to work and I see Black people. You know, we're majority minorities that work on the company. So, you know, naturally what she did was just what she saw. You know, she always said the first person she ever saw to put on makeup was a Black woman, was her mother. So it was natural to obviously appeal to them, but also to appeal to all women. So, you know, is she the first person to ever, you know, offer dark skin foundations? No, but, you know, is she the first person to maybe market to them in a very long time? You know, I feel like companies now see that, wait, there's a demand for this, and now they're trying to say, oh, we've had this forever, but like, did we know? Did you market to those women because you thought that you couldn't make money or you couldn't sell to them? So, you know, I think it's just, I'm happy that she started this conversation and this discussion amongst beauty and fashion industries, the industry and companies to say, hey, these are people and we have a lot of money to spend, and you know, if you show them, they'll show up for you. So,
Great.
Can I just stick something?
Yes, yes.
Just to say, for the point of history and knowledge, there were other companies that focused towards the Black woman consumer. Black Opal was one. Even Revlon created a company also that was really focused towards the Black consumer, it's for sure. And I just want to say that because that's important too when we think about, oh my goodness, look what we have. We never had that before. I want to say, yeah, we have. It may not, just like you said, not marketed as well as that one was at a time. Then you have this audience that's huger. Before people, I mean, a lot of people didn't need to go into stores to buy makeup. You know, they didn't care to do it that way. But it's really a difference because of social media. Because, like you said, you're big on social media, huh?
I follow folks. I follow everyone. And shifting gears a little bit too, and back to you, Jahleel, but I kind of want you all to work down the line here as well. I think another conversation too, when we talk about representation, when we talk about kind of the word that's used a lot, diversity and inclusion, we're often talking, fashion is a very visual space, and so we're talking about the runway, or we're talking about the covers of those magazines or editorials, but there's also issues within boardrooms and among editors and among photographers and among stylists. And so what is it like for you all? I'm kind of conjuring up a thought here of an essay I read by Roxane Gay, where she's talking about kind of being the only one and the one of exceptionalism in the room, and how that intersects with her racial identity as well. So one, kind of what is that experience like for you all? But two, how do you advocate for, whether it be recruitment or hiring other Black people across the board?
I mean, to Chioma's point earlier, I don't know what it's like to be anything other than a Black stylist. You know, I only know my journey and what I've experienced, and I learned early on through my mom that you have to work harder. You know, it was just instilled in me from a young age to say, like, hey, you're not afforded the same luxuries as some of the other people, as some of your friends, and you just have to put in that extra work to prove yourself as much as the next person. So that's just something that kind of stuck with me my whole life, and I've just known that I had to work hard. And as far as like supporting people within this industry of color, I'm very fortunate to say that I have a lot of friends who are stylists, designers, publicists of color that we all support each other. A lot of them are actually here in support today, and it's just great, because we are, it's a team. And, someone once said to me, you're only as good as your team. And, as long as we're a team together, I think that's the only thing that is going to continue this. It's going to continue this conversation. It's going to continue us progressing as a people within this industry. So, I think as long as we stay aligned on the front, I think that's all that we can do.
That's a very good point. That's a good point, too, because I think with us who live in the world of visuals and image, is I always say if you can see it, then people can intimately, they can believe it, And I think what you're saying is very true. But I am beginning to now, my concern is always, I don't care, and I really mean this in my heart. When people say, "Oh my God, we have another black woman on the cover of so and so," I don't care about that. I know it. It helps to affect the minds of whites. It helps to educate them. I care. My fight has always been the fashion model. So I keep it sort of like separate because I would love to keep on making sure she stays. But the thing that I'm becoming very, very concerned with now, because it's kind of painful to hear people who are not in retail. I grew up in the garment district. I grew up between wholesale and retail, and it's very hard to know a lot of young people who are really being affected by not being behind the scenes in that way. That's something I think I want to start to bring that conversation. I don't know how, because that's a hard one. When you have to break into corporations, it's not easy. And what you're doing and what you all are doing is visual. And black is cool right now. So it's and it will be cool for a little while because you all have made it cool. But the people who behind the scenes, they can't see them. It doesn't matter, and that's where we have to get, like you're saying, behind so we can make the decision. So Pepsi won't make that mistake. So this one won't make that mistake. So you won't see those mistakes. And that's something I have to find a way to start having conversations, bringing people who can't get a job back in retail anymore. And I think that's really important in being in the boardroom. That's a fight. Dealing with fashion people, easy breezy. But dealing with the corporations is hard, and I think that's very important right now. So we're going to have to use that visual thing and use you all, and I believe I'm going to need your help.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bethann. I also think that there has to be, the pathways to success need to be cleared for people on all levels. Like I think we talk about models a lot and we talk about visual representation, but obviously the people working behind the scenes, the people shooting the images, the people styling it, like it has to be, like too often I'm at a fashion show and I see like I'm one of two people, one of two people of color in the room, and that's disheartening. So I think that breaking in, whether it's mentorships, programs or internships, although, they don't exist at all magazines anymore, which is a real shame, I think, because I think for a lot of people that was my way in, and it wasn't about who I knew, or it wasn't about that for me. So that was how I came in. But yeah, I think for me, it's been now, we have discussions about making sure that a lot of the writers that we are freelancers, thinking about if we can get more people in. It's a constant discussion, and it needs to be. It's not just going to happen organically, I think. It has to be a discussion, and we have to talk about, especially if we're shooting people of color in certain scenarios, I think it's really important that the person who's putting a lens on that, the gaze on that, has to be right. And that's something that I think really is important.
I'm glad you're saying that, because that thing, discussion, I like that word discussion up to a point. And now you start getting angry. And then you start thinking, no, maybe you need to upset them. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Because I'm getting upset.
Yeah. Okay. So the question was about.
We've kind of worked.
You're right.
Okay. I think. Yeah. Okay. So.
Go on.
So I will agree. Yes, I think that it is a matter of bringing more people in decision-making roles, and I think not necessarily a solution, but an endpoint is once corporations realize that diversity makes their company actually better, once they realize that there's actually dollars that can be attached to actually being more diverse, once they realize that that adds value to what they have to offer, then I think then they will realize, and then they will start seeking out that talent. I think, you know, Fenty is a great example when it's like, you know what, why not just make it for everybody? How about we just do it for everybody? And it's a huge success. But when I think about, you know, America, you know, economics and things like that, the more I travel, the more I realize that, you know, not to be hyper patriotic or anything like that, but I think that what continually pushes America forward and sometimes backwards is so many voices in the room. You know, we get a black president, and you have Latinos saying, well, what about us? You get Sotomayor, and then you have the Asians saying, but what about us? And many other countries don't have that. And in that, I realized that it's actually the diversity that helps push the conversation forward, because you have a boardroom full of white, wealthy men. You have blind spots all over the place, and that's how you get, you know, that H&M thing, or I mean, there's a long list of things that you will get from that. And when you increase the level of diversity in those conversations, you can hedge a lot of that stuff and actually add value to the thing that you're actually offering the customer. And I think, to speak to your point, Bethann, I think the big hurdle is we have to figure out a way to get those who are empowered to trust the voices and the minds of people of color, because I think there's been a devaluation, not necessarily of black culture, but of black thought. And once that is something that's valued, which is actually rooted in love, and that's a whole nother conversation, then I think we'll get to that place, and that's the large hurdle, right? Because, anyway.
You're very kind.
I can talk a lot. I know. I'm very,
well, they're giving me the cue to wrap up the conversation. That's the only unfortunate thing, is that these conversations can go on for hours. I've been on panels and organized panels, and they usually filter over into happy hours and dinners and parties. But I've had a great time sharing the stage with you all. But I also want to open it up to the audience. We have a few minutes for questions. Oh, am I calling out people? I see someone in a pink hat.
Oh, that's what those things do.
Want to take it?
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Pierre, also known as Felicity the Ninth. And I am an entrepreneur. I'm an actress, and I'm an inventor. And I'm inspired by everything that thinks, that moves, that works. On my road to discovering myself, I've created a line of products. Now, with this line of products, I don't know where to move forward, how to invest in them. For example, I have a charity bag that I've been working on. It fits, I'm not sure what you call the oval bags, but it fits inside, and it's like a flower that I've painted. That's all white, that stands for being united together, and moving forward for charity. I also have a line of other products, such as I've made my own perfume, but I have these products that I want to bring forward to the marketplace, and I wanted to know if I could get more instruction about who should I go to, what should I do for it, and how should I bring it to the public. And
so our question is, how can she invest in her own entrepreneurship and work? And
I know you're not going to like this answer, Bethann, but social media. I mean, literally.
In this case, absolutely.
Right? I mean, like, I've discovered so many brands on Instagram. You know, so many people on my team have. Like, you don't have to have a PR. You don't have to have a marketing budget. You can really do this yourself, and you can start this yourself. You know, if you know, you just.
Focus.
Yeah, have a focus and get started and think about what's out there and think about what's missing and see how you can fit in there and sort of gain a following. And that's really, like, there's been so many success stories like that because thanks to social media, you can engage, you can find your people. That's what's really great about social media is that you can connect. You can connect with people all over the world. You don't have to, there's no boundaries, there's no limits to the way that you get your message out. And like if you it catches a fire, people will notice, and people will notice, and you may end up with a story on Vogue.com. That's how these things work.
Great. I think we have a question over here.
Oh yes. Hi. My
Can
name
you
is
stand up?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Chioma Mohammed. I'm a designer as well, and one of the points that really stuck out from Jahleel was about the strength of your team ultimately undergirding the strength of your business and the strength of what you're putting forward. So as an independent creative, I would love, if you guys have any tips on finding that team. It can be really nerve-wracking to try to expand from one person, even if it's working well, to other people that you need, help and assistance to bring your vision to life, but it's also a negotiation. So
What is your product?
Kyrie Jewelry, Kyrie Official. We just launched at Barney's this year.
Oh.
Yeah.
For me, my team just kind of came from working from years of experience, years of just meeting other people throughout the industry. So, I feel like platforms like this and events like this where you can see people like yourself, you can see people that look like you, that, have a different skill set that you might need, I think is a great way to start that process and start that conversation with people that can help you and can be of help to you at some point. None of us got here by ourselves. So there was someone in this room at some point that helped us all. So, whether they're in this room or not, I should say. But I think this is a great start. And, I think there's a portion after this where you speak to people, we mingle. So, I think that's the right time. Say hi.
You know what? I want to add to this too. I want to say what he's saying is absolutely right. Whatever you did say, because I was so busy listening, I don't remember. But I want to say something to you. Don't limit yourself to your color. Use the white person. It's very important. I just want to keep it very clear that there are too many people in the world that can help you. Mm-hmm. Don't limit yourself and think, well, I just want to make sure, because Rihanna was a star before she did this. So what you have to do, knowing that your star is rising, find anyone who you think has the credentials that would help you and lean in on them and ride with them. Do not limit yourself. Yes?
I'm sorry about that, because what I wanted to add to that too.
Yeah.
You want to recognize your customer base in your own diverse circle as well, because just like we're saying, that having a lot of diversity around us and seeing diversity in boardrooms and on editorial boards and all of that is going to help, solve this problem or take us forward. I think within our own companies too, we have to see the faces of all the people that we're trying to reach and market to.
And that means
so
we don't diverse team. What does that mean?
No, I for all of us,
yes, a diverse.
Because we're preaching that we need diversity. So I think that it's, if we want to only see ourselves reflected on our teams, then we go back to the issues that we had with models where, a designer could say, well, that's what I see every day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that looks normal to me.
Yeah. That's
so
aesthetic.
Yeah, we have to be as broad-based as we can while helping each other rise up.
Well done.
I think we have
And I'll quickly just say that team building is also a matter of trial and error as well, and it doesn't come quickly.
Yeah.
I've had some mishaps, and you just have to nip that in the bud quickly and move on. And then those people who get your references, understand it, and can execute, you stick with them, you support them, you pay them before you pay yourself, and you'll have a family. So.
Candace has a question.
One last question, and then we'll have 60 seconds to answer.
Hi, I'm Candace Hoyes. I'm a jazz singer, and I'm the only young Black woman who's a lecturer at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And I just wanted to Thank you. I'm inspired by conversations about expanding cultural spaces. And I wanted to ask about aesthetics beyond, I'm part of the hip hop generation and that inspires me, but as a jazz artist, we have artists like Misty Copeland, and myself, other kinds of performing artists who also hopefully expand and inspire fashion and culture. How do you relate that into the conversation, like other kinds of artists besides the mainstream? And
well, I'll speak quickly. So I'm directing a fashion show this Saturday for Pierre Moss, Kirby Jean Raymond, and actually we have a live choir that's going to be performing the music for the show, and they're 18 Black classical opera singers. And I think it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be amazing. And it's not that we haven't had Black classical singers before. We know of many, Leontine Price, one of them, my favorite. But it's nice to take a moment like that to acknowledge a different, sound. I look back to Kanye West's My Twisted Dark Fantasy. I thought that was an amazing pop culture moment when, you had all these beautiful ballerinas and things like that in this kind of hip hop video montage. And so, I think, again, it's about having creatives in places to pluralize the Black existence, right? Because it's not just one thing, but we are diverse and many-hued and many-interested in, high, low, mediocre. It's all across the board. And I think it's about showing that plurality.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Smart people in here. So now I have to introduce our second panel, Fashion Systems, moderated by Annie Jean Baptiste, the Global Product Inclusion Evangelist at Google. Can we welcome you?
We've been down the same. All right, hi everyone. How was that last panel? Great. Yay, awesome. So I'm super excited to be here today moderating the second panel. As mentioned, I am the Global Product Inclusion Evangelist, and our team is tasked with ensuring that our products accurately reflect the diversity of our users. I'm also a huge fashion fan, so really honored to have y'all here today. And we'll be talking about how people, process, and product revolutionize industries, particularly fashion and technology. All right, so as we get started, I'd love for our panelists to introduce themselves and also let us know one fashion trend they hope never goes away.
My name is Kim Jenkins. I'm a professor at Parsons School of Design and Pratt Institute. I've got some students in the audience representing Parsons and Pratt. And I guess just in short, a trend that I don't want to go away is diversity. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Brandice Daniel. I'm CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row. And this is actually a beauty trend. One thing that I hope that does not go away is red lips. Love them. Love that.
Chris Bevans, fashion designer. Trend that I hope never goes away is freedom of expression.
Awesome, great. So as I mentioned, my focus is on ensuring that all users from different backgrounds, whether it be ability, gender, ethnicity, see themselves in our products and make sure that they're inclusive as possible. We talk about the 3 Ps a lot. Again, they're people, process, and product. So I'd love to hear from y'all about how those 3 Ps intersect with your work, and if any other parameters, so I'm adding a 4th P, also intersect as well.
What's the Ps again?
People, process, and product.
Gotcha.
Or if you want to add a non-P, that's okay too.
I'll start with people for me because my goal is to support multicultural fashion designers. And so people are at the core of what I do. Usually it's Black and Latina designers. And my goal is to really allow them to share their vision, their creativity, their point of view with the fashion industry as well as the world. So that is absolutely the core of what I do. I don't know if you want me to, I think I'd be up here for a minute talking about all 3 Ps, but that's definitely the core for us.
Process driven. I'm on the fashion calendar, and that means that I have to deliver on time to get the dollars that are allocated by the retailer. So the process in my office, from ideation to fabric sourcing to manufacturing to shipping and logistics to customer service, is at the very core of our business. And as a young Black entrepreneur, my mistakes can be magnified quickly if I'm not delivering product on time and with great quality. So we're trying to find ways to kind of bridge, create a bridge to our sales associates that are helping us sell the product to the end consumer. And what we've been doing is implementing a technology in each garment that is called near field communication. So it allows you to, it's NFC tags, so it allows me to upload data in real time to the garment, and it can scan it with your phone.
It's really cool. So you talked a little bit, I'm going to come to you now because I have a specific question for you around the 3 Ps. So you talked a little bit about the process, and there are different parts, obviously, in the process. How important is it to have an inclusive lens or have different perspectives around the table throughout the fashion design process? And more so, we talked a little bit about in the last panel, from fashion designers to photographers and everyone in between, how important is it for us to see diversity reflected throughout the fashion process?
I guess for me, circling back to the 4 Ps, I would have to say working together is people and process. For me on a daily, weekly, bi-semester basis, the most important element of what I do is, or the most important person is the student. They guide, how I educate them completely guides. Having them there completely guides the conversation of fashion and where it's going. These are students who are going to be the next designer, the next buyer. And so with that, the process is key. How much I know about fashion history, how I can organize and deliver information to them in a way that's relatable and makes sense for them. And so that's key for me. And incorporated in what I teach as a professor of color, I think it's imperative that I have an inclusive perspective. These students don't always have fair representation when they're learning fashion history and theory. And so I take that on as my #1 job, to have an inclusive perspective of how they're learning fashion history when it comes to the designers they see, the models that they learn about. All of those things are key. And just seeing how they can be the change they want to see when it comes to representation in the fashion system.
Awesome, that's great. Since we're here during Black History Month, and you all have given so much to our community and also just the fashion community at large, I'd love to hear about how race intersects with your work or what role it plays.
I'm happy to take that first. Race plays a huge part in what I do. It actually inspired my company. When I started Harlem's Fashion Row, one of the things that I did was I literally went through every single designer on major department stores' website and researched them. And it took me months to do that. And I said, wow, okay, so less than 1% of the designers that are on this website are people of color. And then I just started buying all of these different books to figure out, like, has it always been like this, or is this something new? And one of the books that I came across was by Lois Alexander Lane, who was the founder of the Black Fashion Museum and Harlem Institute of Fashion, which now, because of her, we actually have some of our legacy preserved at the National Museum. And I realized that it hasn't always been this way. There were actually, I think Tracy Reese spoke about a few designers earlier, the James McQuay, the Gordon Henderson, the Isaiah Rankin. There were so many designers before. And in 2018, it's actually worse now than it was even in the 70s and 80s. So race actually has inspired me to create Harlem's Fashion Row and to create a solution.
Great. Why do you think that is, that it's worse now than before with technology and all these new ways that we can kind of unveil and discover new designers? Why do you think that is? And anyone can answer that.
I think Bethann spoke about it earlier when she said that there was a period in which people didn't care. It was just all about the art and the creativity. And even if you go back, there's a really cool video with Isaiah Rankin, and I think she was a buyer at Barney's from like way back. And like you can just see their interaction. It was very comfortable. I'm not sure what happened and how things changed throughout the years. There was also the consolidation of department stores where before buyers actually had a direct relationship with designers, and that also changed, right? Because it started being a lot more numbers driven than relationship driven. So that definitely played a piece in it as well. But right now I'm really focused on figuring out like what's the solution.
I want to add to that and say that we also kind of witnessed this when it came to connectivity with Black people designing. We had all the streetwear coming out, these niche brands coming out in the 90s. We were very much connected, and then something just kind of dissolved a little bit, where we were, not really creating these brands for us, by us anymore. And, something happened by the 2000s where we just weren't connected as a tribe as much anymore, and everyone's kind of dispersing. Mm-hmm. And so now it would be great if we sort of come back to that. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think that had something to do with it from a fashion history perspective.
Definitely.
The priority became less on kind of holding us together through a brand with this kind of core value.
And I agree with you 100%. And walking in here today, I saw Jeff Tweedy sitting down on the phone like he always is, probably cutting some major deal, right? But Jeff Tweedy gave me my first job in corporate design America, working for Puff. And his assistant found me in the aisles of Mood Fabric in early 2000, just trying to learn textiles, moonlighting at FIT. And my interview was with Jeff. I brought in my portable sewing machine and some of my sketches and things that I made, and he hired me on the spot. Wow. And I'm here today, and I see that brother sitting out there. And I actually needed some advice because I have my own business, and I have investors. And one of my investors is actually one of Sean John's primary investors. And I was just like, Jeff, I'm doing this. And he's like, I've been watching you. And I'm like, I need some advice. Simple. And sure enough, he's on his phone doing what Jeff does, But that's what I think the culture is about. Yeah. And never burning a bridge and passing it along. Jeff doesn't have to do that. Do you know how many people Jeff has put in the game from from public school? And walking into the Sean John offices, I was like, man, this is amazing. The design director, Damien, was, a young Black designer at Puff, picked himself. And the faces that were in that office in 2001, 2002, and what Puff did for the culture of streetwear, because it was at like after Cross Colors, and Carl Kanai. I was like, you were right. It kind of hit a low, and So I'm searching, for inspiration, and Francis Hendy on 39th Street to Oswald Boateng on Savile Row, and I was like, man, it's out there. And then to see what Dame Dash and Sean Carter did, and having an opportunity to work with them, I think those guys really revived just streetwear and what they did for the culture to give us opportunities and to see us running things, and then, to talk about the boardroom and everything like that, what Trevor Edwards is doing at Nike as the head president, the main guy in charge. It's really interesting to see us evolve.
Which comes back, just real quick, back to the first panel discussion about value and pulling each other up, having enough faith, not just kind of trying to convince these commercial brands or magazines to have faith in our thought and who we are, but us having faith in ourselves and valuing ourselves and our own culture and pulling each other up, still seeing a value in having like a Black-centered label. What happened? So.
I love that.
I mean, I was going to say, because we have everything we need, to be honest with you. I mean, it's great to have support from everyone, but I had a dinner on Monday, and after the dinner, Veronica Webb said to me, imagine if we all use all of our resources to pull each other up, what would happen? And there would be it would be a revolution. It would be amazing.
Totally. Wow. Snaps to that. I love all these answers. Christopher, I would love to hear more about your most recent show, and I think you definitely kind of brought all of these things together. So if you could give us a little bit of a summary on that, that would be great.
Yeah, we had an amazing show. We opened New York Fashion Week. I don't like to talk about myself too heavy, but we shut it down. This is what it is, Thanks to the CFDA, they've been amazing. Stephen Cole, Leah, everybody. They've just been so supportive, to get me in these positions. We opened the show with Public Enemy, Fight the Power. We had, it was a nod to the 60s, the late 60s and 68, and what Dr. King was doing, and the ultimate sacrifice, and a bit of, those Oakland rebels, and Black Panthers, we're not preaching hate, but we're, don't take our kindness for a weakness. And we really, the whole squad, my whole team, we rallied, my partner's flying in from Hong Kong. But the soundtrack was really about, it was rebel music, from Fela Kuti to Rage Against the Machine. I love rock and roll too, and it's, Chuck Berry, birthed that, and so it was, it was a really powerful moment for me to do my first runway show in such a beautiful space. And my cousin Shaka is our design director. He was up in Harlem with you, Brandice, up there, so I couldn't make that. But, we had to, and just to, it was a special moment. And, I really, the CFDA, I give them some, give them some props, from, having Victor and, out there in the audience. We were part of the CFDA finalists, to Mateo, to Telfar, who won it, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's so many good people out here that we're all working together, and it's like, when we stick together, it just makes things easier for us to get the power and to click in with more powerful people, and it's what we do with it now is what we're gonna have to see, and do positive things with it.
That's awesome. Well, huge congrats. And we're all really proud of you.
Yes.
All right, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on the intersections of technology and fashion. I know we talked about it a little bit on the last panel, but would love to hear your thoughts on if it's revolutionizing fashion, if it's a hindrance to fashion, a little bit of both. Tell us your thoughts.
I have, I guess, just a brief, well, I was going to say I have a brief answer, just one example.
It can be long.
But no, I actually do. For me, social media, as a professor, using Instagram to document what's going on in the classroom, share some of the concepts that we talk about, maybe the readings that I assign and photos that's going on in the classroom. So like if I have Dario Calmese come in to visit, documenting that. It's so important to use that technology to document it, share it, let people know this is happening, this is what's going on in this space, let them know what I'm doing, and I'm in a position of power as an educator at a great school with a great room of students, and we're building these ideas and pushing for change. So it's important to use technology for me to document all of this through the content. And then just using the example that one of my students got me hip to. One of my students from I have a class I teach at Parsons called Fashion and Race. And all we talk about is race. And so, and it's great. And so one of my students, Miles Lofton, who's kind of a big deal, new emerging photographer. If you don't know, you should look him up, Miles Lofton. He told me about an initiative that Joshua Kissy from Street Etiquette was creating, this startup called Tonal. I think it's like TONL. And what it seeks to do is kind of transform what populates with stock images. So like when you Google something in an image, it's advocating for populating images that contain people of color. And so that's what Tonal's doing. And so I kind of see that as the future of what is possible with technology and inclusivity and representation.
Our team is definitely going to have to look up Tonal and make some connections. Thank you for that.
I think technology has really it's kind of democratized things for designers, so they don't no longer have to wait on the retailers, which, the retail industry is really struggling right now anyway, but they don't have to wait on that. They can actually create their own platform. They can create their own home, their own hub online now. And so that has really totally changed the game. I mean, they can reach clients everywhere. It doesn't, they can all over the world at this point through their website and through social media. So I think that it's been incredible, especially for designers of color.
I agree with you. Technology is a platform that you can sell your product on. We talked about, how you can find ways to penetrate the market. That's the gram, right? But our company, Dine, is rooted in technology. I'm fortunate, I have a fellowship at MIT's Media Lab, and I get to work with sensors in the sensor department. And so stumbled across near-field communication, which basically is a chip, maybe the size of a dime. And I'm wearing my garments like your phone can communicate with what I'm wearing. So you have to access this. Androids have the technology. You just go to your settings and you turn on your NFC. The new Apple platform, thank goodness they've unlocked it. So we built an app for that allows you to scan the garment that I have on, and anything that we ship comes with this. And we've found that it's like I said earlier, it's a bridge to our customer, because we sell to Japan. We're in Isitans, we're in Barney's, Japan, and English isn't the first language, but they want to know about us. We're a small brand. I'm not that active on Instagram, I'm a bit private, but this is a way for them to interact with us and to learn about the brand, learn about the collection, so that what we're finding is that they're scanning the garments in real time, and it's translated in their language, and then they're like going through it, and it's like, oh, it does this, and it does this. So we're utilizing technology as just a tool. Also, I'm looking for new systems on how to communicate abroad, sending large files. Our technical schematics are multiple pages of very deep, huge files. But there's a technology out there called Backbone that we use. It's a web-based, because there's firewalls in China, and you can't necessarily send everything that you think would just go through. But then I look at Google and Project Jacquard and what you guys are doing, so I'm really here to talk about that too, because I find that fascinating. So, because we pride ourselves on technology and using it as like I said, as a tool, and to spread our message and to create more community.
Great. All right, before we open it up for questions, I'd love for you all to leave us with your hope for the fashion industry as it relates to inclusion in the future.
New ways of, well, I guess when it comes to representation, that's sort of like my number one agenda as a professor and as an advocate for image making in the business of fashion. Smarter ways of kind of thinking through representation when it comes to the fashion image and how powerful that is. So who's on the cover? What is the subject position of an editorial spread? That's something powerful that we talk about in Fashion and Race. Who has the power in this image? Who's being represented and in what way? Cultural appropriation, things like this. I think that's sort of number one right now, and we need to find new ways of kind of going about doing that, and the solution is having people in powerful positions, people of color, to sit in at the table and help think, I don't know about that editorial image, let's look at that again, or is that going to be appropriate or not, or, considering the subject position of it, or how someone's being represented, or it looks like it's drawing on a certain culture. Do we know enough about that so we're not offending someone? So just thinking through representation, and who has the mic, or who's in front of the camera, things like that. So that's number one for me, is just working through representation and having the right people around to make smart decisions about that.
I would love to see us go from, we're at like less than 1% still now of designers that are found in major department stores and in this industry. I would love to see us go from that 1 to 10 over the next 10 years. And I'm happy to say that I actually do see a lot of progress that's happening right now, that, people before didn't like to talk about race in fashion. It wasn't something that was a welcome conversation. And so I think even us being here, which I'm so thankful for the CFDA for hosting this, I think us being here today and having this conversation says so much about where we're headed when it comes to race in fashion.
I agree with both you sisters. So, not much for me to say, just want to see us continue the entrepreneurial spirit that we are born with, and to continue to support each other in our ventures. Sharing our resources, I think, is important. We tend to kind of keep it to our cards close to our chest. But I think as the Black community, we can access anything, and I think it's important for us to share. And the young brothers that are in Barney's, and how can we help him? How can we rally around him to get his product to that next level and get it in front of the right people that can springboard him, and create a big, diverse business, and we can employ more and build a culture, because I think it's about the culture of your business and the message that you send from the leadership, and how that resonates to everybody through the company. So that's what I'm trying to build. I have a small operation, but it's a beautiful mixture of people, and we're all working towards one common good. And it's like a Trojan horse, and we all jump out, and it's like, oh man, there's a bunch of good dudes here, and ladies, and creatives, and business, and we share amongst each other. So we pass that along.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Are there any questions?
Run the mic so that everyone can hear. Start with you.
Hi, now I'm nervous. My name is Lindsay, and I own a boutique in Dumbo in Brooklyn. It's the most populated neighborhood in Brooklyn, high income. Most of my customers are Caucasian, but I definitely promote the culture. I have people coming in, Caucasians buying the Stay Woke chains and T-shirts and everything, along with the other designer items, because it's a mixed bag. But just to add on and to what you were all saying, I will say that a lot of the upcoming minority designers that are amazing and wonderful that I've reached out to locally, and ones from, you know, India, Dubai, all over the world, a lot of them are so laser-like focused to be in department stores that they forget about the small retailer and small Black entrepreneur. You know, they're so wanting to be in these big department stores. And I agree with you. I want to see it go from 1% to 10%. But I would implore all of these people not to forget the small business person that has the numbers, that can push the culture forward and that wants to do their part, but just, you know, don't forget about us, because we want to work with you too, you know. Let's work together, as you said, and bring everybody up.
I absolutely agree, because I'd have to ask if the department store is where it's at. Anyway, you know, anyone who's monitoring like the business of fashion right now and seeing what's happening with department stores. So yeah, don't forget about the small businesses.
Yeah, and then even when we place our orders, what happens is, as you know, the ones who place the biggest orders, they get theirs first, and you get the leftover styles that you may not have wanted as much, you know? So you end up getting the short end of the stick, but we're still making money and we're still pushing the culture forward, and we want to represent, I want to represent other, you know, minority designers. I do. It's just that, you know, I understand things have to be in line brand-wise and price point-wise, but beyond that, you know, we don't just focus on the department stores, because we're building brands too that may end up being something big one day. You never know.
Absolutely. And most of the designers that I'm looking for, they're looking to get into boutiques. They're looking to get anywhere to be sold, honestly.
That's so true.
Right.
And department stores come looking to what you do to see if they're cool or not. You're the barometer. And I think with emerging talent and designers, and you can give them a platform inside your store to say, hey, why don't you come through and this Saturday and, you know, bring your customers, we do something special. It doesn't take much.
Like an event or whatnot,
because that type of planning with a department store takes 6 months, a year to happen, right?
Right, whereas we can make it happen in a month.
You can make that call like tomorrow.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think a lot of designers and creatives don't necessarily think on the quick win.
Right.
You know, that's a quick win. I look for those quick wins.
Right.
Like, I'm all about that action. You know, seriously. And in the department stores, yeah, that's the long-term strategy, and we could do things. But I want to be local. You know, I want to be around the way.
Right.
You know, and I think you have a store in Dumbo. You can open up your doors for, you know, your brands that you feel are, you know, really appreciate what you got to offer. That's my advice.
True. Thank you.
We could try throwing. That might be dangerous.
Hi. Is this thing on? First of all, I just want to say, as a software engineer, Jeff Tweedy made my career too. I don't know if he's in the building or not, but
software engineer.
Yes, I designed the first Sean John website. So first Blue Flame. So now I'm at a company called Makers Row. I'm the head of product. I'm on. Hello, everybody. And
you need to be up here, bro.
We'll keep talking to Google. We've got some cool stuff in partnership with them coming out, so we're excited. But as someone who had a clearer path in terms of selling my original companies, tech companies, I'm 2 startups deep down. I'm trying to get this company to the same place. I want to find out, where do we connect more with fashion folks, right? As an engineer, we have engineering meetups, hackathons. There's too many, right? And for this opportunity, I came here to listen to designers and people who are creating products and brands, but there's not enough of this. So there's definitely not enough of it for Black people creating stuff. But overall, it's like, how do we?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I want to have more of this commentary, because Makers Row originally just worked as a dating site for someone who wants to create a product and the people who manufacture it. Now we're about to take the product into a whole new level, and we want to know what your needs are. So I want to do more of this. How do we find more of this where us nerds can integrate with the cool folks who do fashion?
We're nerds too. But I think what Brandice did up in Harlem, on Monday was, I think, special. Like it's a hub of creatives up there, special moment. And I go back and forth with that too, because I ended up going to CES, because I'm looking for the technology play as well. So I roll up as a fashion designer in a tech conference, and they're looking at me like, this guy's interesting and what he's trying to do, but there's a lot of tucked in shirts and blazers and whatnot. But I think the CFDA is a great partner to start with, because they have found a way to wrangle all those crazy designers into one place, and to give us access. I think also the Woolmart company is a good starting place. It's based on wool, but it has a network of creative people as well that you can kind of tap into. And shout outs to Makers Row. You guys are great. It's a great database, and surf through that. For sample rooms to pattern makers. So and we should all creatives should know about that. Yeah. That's a great hub. So maybe we need to find you some sponsors, and it's a Maker Row convention.
I bought 50% off product codes for everyone here, so I'll leave that somewhere so that everyone can sign up.
Thank you.
But yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Great. So I think we're actually at time. So thank you.
Can I get one more question?
Okay, sure.
One more.
Let me bring you the mic. So I'm getting my steps in. Was it you? Oh.
No, go ahead. You sure? No, it's you. Okay, thank you. I like to say that my name is Diane Danier, and I'm a fashion designer. I kind of feel like the spotlight is not on Black designers enough. We talk about diversity a lot, but we never really dig deep. And thank you, Brandice, for your positioning. Because, something as simple as we're about on the eaves of award season. And right now, we have a lot of Black actors and actresses in positions of power who are about to get awards. If you watch the awards and watch how many actors and actresses say they're wearing Black, it's actually quite sad. So my question to you guys is, how do we shift that? Because we're in more positions of power, more than before, or we feel like maybe not more than before, but we're just not talking about the designers, and we're here. There's more Black designers now than there probably were before, and we don't hear about them. We hear about the stylists, we hear about the makeup artists, we hear about the hair stylists, but we don't hear a lot about Black designers. How can we change that?
So we actually have a letter that's going out very soon, because on our list are a lot of stylists and celebrities and people who actually can influence what's being worn on the red carpet. And we're actually suggesting 10 designers. So I would love to have your information as well after this. But I think Fashion Bomb just did an article on this, but I do think that it is something that we have to start calling out. Like Bethann was like, we might have to get a little gangster too with that. We have to start calling it out and saying, like, there are amazing Black designers that you can wear to the Oscars, to the Grammys, to, all of these different awards that are happening. So we'll definitely have that going out. And if you have any other ideas, I'm totally open to help and encourage that.
Yes, and I think it's the stylist that can really help us. Like, June Ambrose is a dear friend, and she's always hitting me up for product, but we built a relationship. She can trust me that I'm going to get it to her when she needs it. And I think as we can start to, that community of the stylists who are working close with the talent on red carpet, so that you and I, can have a shot at dressing, John Legend, and, keep going, So I think that's kind of an entry point that I see.
And again, just, I know I sound like a broken record, but that connectivity of just having, I remember in the 90s, like having rappers and musicians always shouting out Black designers, and then it just kind of snowballed into just supporting one another and just wearing Black labels. So we all have to kind of work together to promote this and value this together and want to wear it and celebrate it. So.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being on this panel. We really appreciate it.
Can we do a really quick 30-second speed lightning question, because Tolu was so nice to give her question away. That was really kind. So 30-second answer. It'll be a challenge.
Hi, guys. So I'm a senior at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, fashion design. And I was just wondering, the number of Black students that are represented in our school, not only like Black fashion, but Black film, Black anything, is like slowly deteriorating, because I feel like Black kids get to our school or get to Pratt Institute and they either can't afford it to stay, and then our school just somehow pushes them out because there's like, oh, they don't have money, or they get there and they don't feel comfortable because they see all these white professors, white teachers, white students, and they come to them with these Black ideas and these beautiful things, but then their professors are saying, oh, I can't relate, oh, I don't understand, and that forces them out and forces them to leave. So I'm just wondering, how can we, as Black fashion, as CFDA, get more student involved and Black student, like make us feel like we matter? Because I feel like in our school, our Black lives don't matter. It's like they just, Black education, they don't care about us. They only care if we can afford it. If we can't afford it, they're quick to kick us out. So I was just wondering if that could just open up that discussion about it. Thank you.
30 seconds of answer. That was a tough one.
I'd like to speak to that because Tolu is one of my former students. And so between Parsons and Pratt, there is like a crisis. I find myself doing additional labor as a professor of color, and one of the very few in both schools working with these students, where the students of color end up coming to me needing help or advising to kind of validate their ideas. And then we have to kind of put our heads together and think, how can we push this through? Or there's an issue where they don't have enough money for the materials to kind of see their dreams to fruition. And so it's hard to kind of talk about it all in 30 seconds, but there is an issue there. And there needs to be a value on that. I mean, these students are brave enough just applying to these schools because some of them come from families where they think, no, too much is at stake. What, you're gonna go to fashion school? Like, what are you gonna do with that? Why don't you do something that's more of a sure bet? So they're already being brave enough to get into our schools. And then they need to have their ideas and dreams cultivated. And we need a diverse staff, a faculty, to help them with that. And not only that, the faculty we do have, they need to be educated so that they can help these students. And it doesn't become this hot potato of tossing the students, to someone else of color just to help them out because they don't know what they're talking about, or they don't speak that language.
There's
so
also
it's an issue that I'm very passionate about.
I agree. There's also alternatives for Pratt, right, and FIT. Cooper Hewitt Design, on the Upper East Side, they do a lot for education for us, and the Smithsonian Museum as well. So I work closely with both those institutions for Black and Latino students to have something outside of the regular academic structure. So after school, running a program that teaches them everything about design, from screen printing to threading a sewing machine. And the MacArthur Foundation has given me a grant to do this. So there's other ways, and I applaud you, Kimberly, for just, being in the academics and just, taking the charge. And, it's up to us, I think, to be guest speakers in these schools, and show up, as designers and as leaders and from the boardroom to, to local, tailor shops and seamstresses like my grandmother did, So I know the 30 seconds is up, but, there is, we can connect more after this.
Great. So again, thank you all so much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. It was wonderful. And next, really briefly, wanted to welcome Alyssa Min, who is a YouTube specialist who's specialist in small and medium businesses. So she just wanted to give you a little bit of a info session on how you can build your brand in the digital space via YouTube. So that'll be short and sweet, but we're excited to learn more. Thanks.
All right, cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa. I'm part of the global marketing team here at Google. I'm actually traveling from San Francisco, so it's really inspiring for me to travel out here, hear from designers, aspiring designers, creatives who want to really move diversity forward in fashion and beyond. And so I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you today very shortly about how to share your fashion story through YouTube and really using and leveraging YouTube to grow your brand and to tell your brand story, because we know that that's really important as fashion and as a brand. So if we go to the next slide. To the next slide. Before I dive into some of the tactical things you can do, I wanted to take a step back and talk about what our mission is here at YouTube. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a daily consumer of YouTube. I'm on YouTube at least once a day. And the content that I consume used to be like viral videos or like cute videos of dogs and cats, but it's really evolved to a place where I go for a diverse range of content, right? This past weekend, I went to watch the Super Bowl ads, but I also went to watch news clips or clips of the NBA, and also to check out my favorite brands, obviously. So YouTube has evolved into this place where there is such a diverse range of audiences that come to consume all types of content. And so if we move to the next slide, it's perhaps not surprising that we have 1.5 billion logged in monthly users. And to put that further into context, next slide, that equates to almost 1/3 of all people on the internet being on YouTube at any given time. So that's pretty crazy if you think about the entire population of the globe and 1/3 of them being on being on YouTube and consuming content daily. Another kind of two other points that I want to raise is that there are 400 hours of new content uploaded to YouTube every minute, and YouTube has also launched in local versions in more than 88 countries. And if we move on to the next slide, we know here at YouTube that YouTube is a major destination for fashion consumption. So YouTube is the #1 online destination to watch fashion shows. YouTube also reaches more 18 and older year-olds during primetime TV hours than any TV network. And there's been a 56% year-over-year growth of fashion views and fashion content on YouTube. So we know the audience that comes to YouTube is hungry for fashion content, and they're always looking to explore and to find new brands, to find new designers. And that's something that we've been able to see throughout the evolution of YouTube. We move on to the next slide. We also know that when people are coming to YouTube, they're coming in for a leaned-in experience, which basically means that when you're watching TV and you're watching your favorite TV show and the ads come on, you probably turn on your phone or fix yourself a snack, or there isn't really much paid attention to the ads on traditional media. Whereas on YouTube, we know the user who's coming and we know the audience that's tuning in. So we're actually able to provide a much more catered experience to the user in terms of the content that we serve, both natively, but also for ads. And obviously, I think we're all guilty of this. We probably watch more YouTube on the go and on our mobile phones than we do on our desktop. And so at YouTube, we've optimized our ad formats and as well as our video formats to meet the needs of today's users who are on the go. So maybe all of that sounds really great to you. YouTube has the reach, it has the attention, it has the visibility, but what are some of the steps that you can take as designers and as brands to tap into that? So we'll go over a couple of the steps that you can take. The first is to create a home for your business on YouTube. A lot of established brands have done this very, very well, in addition to publications and artists. But we know that when people come to YouTube, people often go to the home page. So if you're able to build a spot for your business where people are able to easily find out what your brand is about, that's kind of a number one baseline step that you can take to set yourself up visually so that people are able to explore what your brand is, what your products are like, and see things and have a 3D experience. So some of the things you can do is create a specific banner, create a teaser, as well as creating specific sections for all of the different content that you house. If we move on to the next slide, we know that obviously a lot of these brands are pretty big and are very well established in the space, but we've seen that brands and publications have really been able to supercharge their growth when they make use of YouTube as almost a digital extension of their presence. So the second thing you can do is create really eye-catching content. And YouTube, because it's such a visual platform, it really gives you the creative leeway and the freedom to experiment and be experimental in the way you approach your audience and interested potential customers. So to give you an example, we have a video from Louis Vuitton. It's very short, it's very sweet, but it captures the ambiance of the collection and of the brand, and it really just kind of draws the viewer in so that the viewer is enticed to explore further and really engage with the brand. So if we move on and we'll show an example. So that's a 10-second clip, and Louis Vuitton created a series of 10-second clips that they uploaded to YouTube so that users could actually find more, the users could actually interact more closely with their brand after the fashion show. So the fashion show was really about the collection and the clothing, but afterwards they invited viewers to explore their YouTube channel and to explore all of the different types of content that they housed on YouTube. The third thing you can do is get customers to take action once you have your content. So we talked about having a diversity of content on YouTube, and what you can do to further create engagement with your audience is to use interactive features like end screens, which we have here on the left, to encourage viewers to look at other videos and also just explore your channel. So it's really directing your viewers and your audience to the content that you'd like them to see, and you're able to curate their experiences with your brand that way. So we found that these are obviously kind of free tools and levers that you can pull on your YouTube channel, and that they've been pretty successful in really capturing audiences and raising awareness and engagement with your YouTube channel. And lastly, we would encourage you to think about taking advantage of the audience that is on YouTube and reaching more of the right people. So today, I want to introduce a service that is soon coming to New York City called YouTube Director on Site. And YouTube Director on Site is essentially a service that we have here at YouTube where we will connect small businesses and entrepreneurs with professional filmmakers so that you can create a 30-second video or a video ad and get help from Google to put that content up on YouTube. So when you commit to spending $350 advertising on YouTube, which if you are a small business that has advertised on YouTube, it's not a large amount at all. With that commitment, we will provide you with a professional filmmaker, as well as YouTube ad experts who will help you to set up your ad campaign so that you can target the right audience and get the most out of your ad campaign. Next slide. And really quickly, these are kind of the 3 steps that you take with the service. First is you just tell us about your business, and your filmmaker will work with you to create a script and kind of hone in on what makes your brand or what makes your product special. Because we know that sometimes like capturing that in a 30-second video is actually harder than it is to do in maybe a 30-minute video. So we help you kind of zone in on that succinctly. The second thing is then the filmmaker will actually come visit your business and have a film session with you so that they can film your video ad. Within the next week, they will send you the edited version that's ready to be uploaded and advertised on YouTube. And lastly, one of our ad experts will reach out to you and will provide you with consulting so that you're able to set your video ad campaign up for success on YouTube. So I think we can go over the benefits really quickly for the sake of time, but YouTube Director on Site brings out the magic in your business. So obviously every designer, every brand, everyone has a story to tell, and we're able to help you tell that story in a succinct manner that's most well suited for YouTube. And secondly, you also get to stay within a budget, but also work with the best. So we know how expensive content creation can be, and we know how expensive it can be to create quality videos. And so we really want to help entrepreneurs and small businesses with that process so that you're able to leverage YouTube and everything that we have to offer without spending too much money. So lastly, if we move on. So at this point, you might be wondering, like, is YouTube ads even worth it? Like, how does it all work? Is it a gimmick? And the short answer is that you can visit youtube.com/ads to learn more. We have a lot of content there, case studies, a lot of help articles that you can look at to leverage YouTube for your brand. But I would also just encourage you to think about how to grow your brand and your brand presence. And sometimes it's hard to do organically, and sometimes you want to be able to target the specific people who may be interested in your product or in your brand. And in that case, YouTube is really, really a great tool and a great product where you can reach the right people who may be interested in your product. So the first is you can connect with people who matter to you. We have very robust targeting capabilities that will allow you to work directly with a Google ad expert who will help you to set up your campaign so you're reaching certain types of people, certain demographics that you want to reach for your advertising campaign. The second is that you only pay when someone watches 30 seconds of a video ad. So unlike traditional media, if someone skips your ad or if someone doesn't watch the entirety of your ad, you actually don't pay for that at all. So it's a great way to stretch your budget. And thirdly, because we have such robust metrics and data, you're able to see how you're doing, and you're able to reiterate on your ad campaign so that you're setting yourself up for success. So with that, I will be hanging out outside. So if you have any questions about Director on Site or about YouTube ads in general, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here today. It has really been an honor to host these thought leaders and innovators who are committed to making fashion a more equitable and inclusive place. And my hope is that the conversation doesn't end here. As we heard from everyone, like, we hope this is really just the start, and we can share at least one thing we've learned today with people both inside and outside of the industry. So this will all be recorded, and we'll have a video on our Accelerate with Google site. And we also host workshops to help with any digital skills trainings. And just a call out, there will be one here tomorrow, and I'll have a sign-up, a laptop with a sign-up sheet outside if you are interested in learning how to use any digital tools to grow your business. It sounds like there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the room. So really just want to say thank you to everyone for making it out today. Thank you to our amazing speakers for coming, and to CFDA, Lee, Joseph, and everyone for partnering and making this possible. Please enjoy yourselves. We have some refreshments, coffee, tea outside, so please enjoy the rest of your time here, and let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Thank you.